welcome back to the channel. Excited today we're going through and we're talking about how to turn simple conversations into signed contracts. So, most agents think that contracts are won by having the perfect pitch. They're not, right? They're won by saying the right thing at the right moment. They're very much about building that trust, that rapport, and what that looks like, right? So ultimately, what I wanted to dive into today was a little bit about this conversation, because I've been coaching other agents, having a lot with our team and kind of working on that about why conversations matter and to some degree, what conversations matter, right? Ultimately, if you look at the broad scale of things, the first part that I like to start with this is just understanding some of your numbers, right? In Keller Williams, you'll hear and the path is in the math, right? That's very much like just the reality of life. Everything has a number tied to it, and what does that look like? So if you kind of look at it, a lot of people will say, great, you have your database, you have the people you're talking to, and what does that look like? And that number translates to a certain amount of deals in a deal. Deals in a deal. Deals in a year, yeah. Right? So you have it where, okay, how many of those deals are going to, in that year will be from that database, and you can know that number. There's really two big mindsets on this. One, how many people do you need to have, right? And going purely off that number, where is that and what? I've also seen people who will take it the other way and say, hey, instead of, okay, how many are in my database? How many in my database am I having conversations and relationships with at such a high level that the conversion is different? So what way are you taking it, right? I do think that personally, both matter, right? You need to have a number, and what does that look like? And what is enough for you to hit your goals, right? Of people in your database. You do also need to really be intentional about building the relationships and building it so those are deeper. Because in this whole mindset of, okay, how do you turn conversations into contracts? First off, you need the action aspect of having conversations, right? If you're not going to have any conversations in any form or fashion, then getting to a contract is just not going to be a reality. That needs to be there for you to be able to get to that spot, to get to that next level, have it be so you can truly get to the spot where you're earning someone's business and doing what you want to do, which is help someone buy and sell, right? Being that guide, being that person in their life. So, well, to dive into this, I was kind of going through, okay, what are the core frameworks? What are the mindset aspect about having some good conversations? So in my mind, there's 3 conversations that create contracts. And the first one that you need to make sure you're on top of is, we're going to call it the clarity conversation. This is the conversation of you going through and having the right goal of building that trust and clarity in a handful of aspects. If any of you have read the book, you know exactly what to say by Phil Jones and gone to any of his classes. He goes through a triangle of building trust. In that triangle, you have a handful of spots, but one is curiosity, one is empathy, and one is action. So I've already mentioned you have to take the action, right? The courage is what it actually has, courage, and you have to take the action from that courage to be able to have results. The curiosity is going to be your main thing that you need to be in a conversation to have some more context. And then empathy is going to help you become more relatable. And that's what builds trust. The more that you can get of all of those is going to build that foundation, that aspect of being able to be there with those people in that spot. So we can make conversations count, right? Is a big thing that Phil Jones says. So when you're looking at it, if you're having these questions and you're wanting to build this context by being curious, reality is you want to find as much clarity as you can. One of the bold rules with Keller Williams, bold laws, is that clarity is power. And clarity is power is such a powerful thing, because of a lot of aspects. But one is it helps you to know and be able to go forward with much more clarity, much more of what's happening, much more knowledge, right? Having more of that context in a conversation is key. Because the reality is people don't move forward when they're confused, right? So your job is not to convince them. It's that to have and help them to get to the point where they have the clarity that they know what they want to do, right? And that's your job, is to help them get there by asking good questions and really making that happen. So a couple points that you want to clarify and get that clarity around, and by asking good questions to help you get there, are first of all, get the clarity, clarify their goals before you give any solution, right? Before you're like, hey, this is what you should do. Understand and ask the questions around what their goals are, right? That's going to give you that context. That's going to give you that aspect to really understand where they're at and where they're wanting to go before giving them a solution. This is hard for us, right? Entrepreneurs, people who really you've been doing this for a while, or you haven't done it for a while, and your mind says, oh, I know the answer. And you jump there. You go, hey, you said this means that this is the answer. You're supposed to do this, right? Whatever that solution is. We do it way quicker than we should. We need to, even if we feel like we know the answer, we need to ask a few questions to get more clarity, to understand it that much more. Because the reality is, maybe you're a mind reader. I'm not. I need to know, and we need to know what is actually there for you to then get to that level of understanding where you can really give that solution to best help them move in that direction, help them to be able to pick and choose with that confidence that they need and deserve. The next one is this is going to take more questions, right? Understand, have that clarity, have it so that you have that context into what you need to do next. But the next one is clarify their motivation, right? Again, this is before you do strategy. So if you now know kind of a solution that could work, before you're giving them the strategy, asking some more questions around and getting to really know about their motivation. What is that? What are they wanting? Where are they wanting to go? If, we sold your house within the next 30 days, would that be an issue for you, right? Those clarifying questions about motivation and understanding, if you look at the word motivation, right? Motive is the reason, and motive is actually the move, which is interesting. And then ation is like that need. So motivation, really cool. But really diving into those questions to help you understand that part, that aspect, so you can then now ask a few more, right? That's going to be the theme of this section of getting clarity, so that you can then really know to then give them the strategy. The next part in this whole spot of clarity conversations is clarify timeline before you put any pressure, right? You need to know where they're at, what they're really wanting to do, what's important, why, which falls into a little bit of the motivation, but that timeline for them is going to be a huge aspect to help them get where they're wanting to go. So understanding that before you apply any pressure, or knowing what their pressure can be, right? Because really that's where it's like you kind of go through that aspect of figuring that out so that you can then now give and be that guide for them in that way. If you don't ask enough questions, then you're going to be guiding them towards the outcome that you see, which could be not the right one if you knew a few more things about where they really want to go. So, right. So a good example could be, help me understand what would make this a win for you, right? That'd be another good one that could fit into any of those, depending on what they're looking for, right? But here's kind of where, most agents rush through this conversation and don't ask enough questions to really get that context, and don't stay in curiosity to really get that clarity on what they're looking for. So slow down. This is where you slow down here in order to speed up, right? If you get more clarity and you get more understanding, you'll be able to take it that much farther, easier, right? Easier, better, and they're, the people that you work with are going to appreciate it. So that's the very first one of this core framework for having a good conversation to create that, create those contracts. So the next one is going to actually be one that's a lot with you, but it's having confidence. It's the confidence conversation. So when you're confident and when you are knowing that, hey, you're in control of yourself, you're in that right spot, you're calm, is how you're going to help the other side to feel safe, right? If you're all flustered, if you're all over the place, if you aren't in the right mindset to start, they will feel it. They will feel that extra fear. They will feel that extra uncertainty, and it's going to come across as not the right spot. So, if you think about it, confidence is going to come from knowing that your process, right? Confidence is going to come from having the answers before the objections show up and knowing what that looks like. Confidence comes from practice and repetition, not talent, right? Confidence is something that you can learn. It's something that you can apply over time. It's something that you can be a part of by, your surrounding and who you know and what you've done and those little successes, the past history of your successes, right? Those are things that build up over time for you to build that confidence. I talk with a lot of my agents about, not doing no practice, having it so you are practicing before you really go out there and do it. That time of you doing the scripts, of you practicing, using AI, doing a chat GPT, hey, chat with me, this is going to be the scenario, this is what I want to do, I want you to be the seller, have this, and this objections before, you say yes, and let's go through it. Boom. Have that whole dialogue and really dive into it. AI is awesome because you can now, of course, have that and ask for feedback. If you do have somebody like a mentor or someone that you can practice with, then that's a huge tool as well. But use that time to practice before you go in to not only have your confidence of what, knowing the process and knowing what you're going to say, but that's going to help you in so many ways to get there. Because this is where, objective handling lives, is your confidence level of knowing that and having that practice so you can go in and not reacting from something, but being able to take that break and really just be able to guide them through the process by asking those good questions, being confident in what you say and going from there. So that's that next one, that right? Confidence. Yeah. Having that confidence conversation to make sure that you're in that right spot, right framework to really get you to that next level. So the next one, the third one that I was going to go through is the commitment conversation. This is where I see a lot of agents who, in their conversations just throughout the day, talking with people, through the people that they say hi to, even in an appointment, they sometimes shy away from asking that last question of, hey, what's ever the commitment that you're giving, right? What is that you're asking for of getting that commitment? Because people commit when they're ready and can see that the next step's in the right spot. So of course, ideally, you have now gone through in-depth enough with your questions and getting to know and helping them paint that picture that you can then commit and ask them, hey, sounds like this is the next step that we should do, is let's sign the agreement, get this going, do this, do that, right? And lining it up. One of my favorite ones is even just asking for the next small step to then get you into the next small step of a yes, right? So if you're listing a house, being like, great, it sounds like I should get photos ordered for Monday. Would Monday morning work for you for my photographer to come out? Yes, perfect. All right, well then let's get that all planned, so on and so forth, get into the next part, right? Sometimes those small yeses will help you build up the big yes because you're painting that picture of what that time frame looks like. So, timing matters, making sure that you're doing it. The biggest thing though is making sure that you're having and asking for that commitment. That will really make a difference in what you're doing, how you're presenting yourself, and going from there. So when you're looking at it, right, when we're zooming out on what this whole framework looks like, it's making sure that you're having the conversations and asking the questions that help you build trust. Because trust will help you and them build that certainty, build that level of understanding so that you can get to that next level, because that's what trust is going to help you accomplish. And that certainty is going to then help you then create the contract, because you're going to have asked the right questions to help get them in that right spot, right? So of course you notice really in here, there's no tricks, there's no pressure that you're having to add, there's no gimmicks. This is just intentional and being intentional about what's next, caring about the person, building those relationships, and really just getting better at asking good questions, right? Don't presume that you know everything. That's going to be something that definitely hinders you from helping a lot of people and knowing what they're really needing in a high level. So be intentional, go out there, make conversations. That's where it's going to start, right? And the conversation without them, without having them in your database, and we'll talk about, of course, database a lot more, but that's going to help you get to that next level, accomplish your goals, accomplish your dreams, and then making sure that you're taking care of that database at a high level and improving that. So, but yeah, if you're liking this still, continue to keep on subscribing. We appreciate you, and I'm excited to continue to guide you and help you get more deals done.